Namaste everyone. My name is Pawan and I welcome you all towards our Art of Law, Project Nyay's Vidhisamvad podcast. So here we have come up with an important initiative of making all the law students aware within the domain of legal field. And we have an amazing personality that is Prateek sir. Prateek Chandramouli sir, he's been one of the most inspiring person for me being a law student. He's also an alumni of Christ University. And I've been seeing sir's work from very long period of time, and he's been very inspiring in all the cases which he's been dealing with. So we are hosting him as a guest. So you're going to get all kind of insights within the domain of legal field and how sir has basically been dealt in terms of his law school journey, how he's been handling different kind of cases, how he's been running as a team as a great leader. So everything will be covering up. I request all of you to take down notes because this learnings, especially a person who's been practicing within the domain of law and getting insights from such personality creates a very important role for your life because along with theoretical knowledge there is very much important that we need to even build on a practical knowledge understanding, and that's the reason we have the great mentors like Prateek sir over here. So thank you so much sir for joining for our Vidhi Samvad podcast series.
Yeah, thank you, Pavan, Kamal, and Anaga, and to the rest of the team. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Thank you sir, thank you so much. So sir, like our first question would be like, how would you like to introduce yourself to our audience, sir?
How would I like to introduce myself? I am a Bangalore-based lawyer. I have been practicing for the last 5 years, and my life essentially revolves around this city. I was born here, I studied here, my schooling was here. I was a student of St. Joseph's Boys High School. Then I went on to National Public School and then joined Christ University for my law. I graduated in 2019 from Christ University, and then last year I started my LLM from Jindal University, and I've just completed that now. And yeah, that's just about me. Born and raised in this city, and a lot of my education and my background is always been in the field of law because my father is also a lawyer, and yeah, I'm a second generation lawyer, so things are a lot more different for me. We'll get into that in detail later on.
So, sir, like, why have you opted for law and specific? Like, after your 12th grade itself, you had a clarity that you wanted to choose for law, or like you had even other field of interest? And like from your childhood itself, you had like, because as your father was within the legal fraternity, you had more inclined towards the legal field. So how was that insights for you about law? Why law?
Why law is actually a little complicated because I was interested in medicine. I was genuinely interested in pursuing a career in medicine. And at home, when I brought this to my parents' knowledge, I was telling them I have a conflict. I'm not able to choose. Should I go for medicine? Should I go for law? And then I had to make a pros and cons list. And that helps. If I had not made that list, I might have been a doctor somewhere. I don't know. But after making that list, I realized medicine is an area of interest. It My skill sets are not there. Like the amount of effort you need to put into memorizing a lot of aspects is not something that I would say is a strong skill set. So after making this list and after sitting down with my parents, with the other elders in my house, and the discussion, I realized my skill set is actually more in the field of law, more particularly litigation. I have a skill set of networking, communicating. I am a slightly extroverted person, and these are all skill sets that you require in litigation, especially. And having seen my father, he recently was designated as a senior counsel. So when I was watching him grow in the field of law, I would see him, waking up at 4 in the morning to study files, and I would always tell myself, this is not what I want to do. Now I am waking up at 4 to study files. So my inspiration is at home because my father was a state public prosecutor. And when he was the state public prosecutor, and that is the highest post that a prosecutor can have in the state. So you are essentially a person who is ensuring that people are jailed for the offenses that they commit. So your job is to put people in jail. And if you're a private defense counsel, your job is to make sure they don't go to jail. So that is where my inspiration was. And I would see my father handle all sorts of cases, from Nityananda's cases to Swami Shraddhananda cases. He's been a part of all of this. So I would always see the potential that a lawyer has in shaping a lot of aspects of the law, especially when there's a gray area in law. If you are a good lawyer, you can help shape the law itself. And that was something that struck a chord with me. And eventually I decided maybe medicine is not for me, and especially medicine and law. No way, I am not going to be studying for 11 years. And then I decided to give a shot at law. And I was lucky enough to get into Christ University. And this was in 2014. And because of the impact of Christ University, a lot of it, I'm 100% sure all of you will be complaining about. But keep in mind, those little aspects, such as your dress code, your timings, your rigor, those things play a role when you actually come out. So, in a way, that helped uh, give me 5 years of what at that time I thought was I just have to put up with something for 5 years, only to later realize that was actually training for 5 full years. If I go to court, it's with wrinkled clothes, people will notice. If I go to court if I've not shaved my face, they will notice. If I go and I'm not in the right dress code, if I'm wearing baggy pants, if I'm wearing jeans, if I'm wearing slippers, all of these things are noticed. And end of the day, it might not be your fault, affected by this. You shouldn't suffer a bad order because of this. So, yeah, I mean, I'm just deviating from the question, but essentially, my background was at home. My inspiration for why I joined law was at home, and Christ University gave me a good platform and to build on that.
Wonderful, sir. So, sir, can you please experience, like, tell some instance, like about your experience in law school, some stories if you remember still now, and even about University Student Council journey, how it was.
I was part of the University Student Council for 3 years and part of the Deanery Council for 1 year. Essentially, 4 of my 5 years I was part of the Student Council. And for those who don't know, those who are watching who don't know, Student Council is not the same as the Student Union. It's not really an election basis. It is slightly strange. It's like a selection basis. To qualify, you have to be a diplomat, essentially. You should be able to handle student issues. You should be able to handle faculty issues. Kind of a middleman to help both sides understand each other's problem and to get the right resolution, which will play a big role. If you have this skill set and you're joining law, it is very much essential quality. So my journey in the student council actually started in 2015 when I was part of the deanery student council. And I realized being in the student council, in a way, I can draw parallel to being a lawyer. There are certain authorities to whom you have to convince that certain changes are required. Whether that change be in real life, a change in the law, a change in the procedure, convincing goes a long way. But at the same time, you have to understand what is the necessary change and what is the trivial change. So I learned over the course of time through my 3 years in the student council to develop this skill set on explaining to both sides. Like, try to get the students to understand why the faculty cannot do certain things and vice versa. And persuasion played a big role. I was able to persuade the authorities to get the student council, particularly law student councils, to go to Lavasa for the first time. That had never happened. I took the initiative. I said, I'll book the flights for everybody. I'll do everything. Just give us permission. And again, Fazil would be here. You were trying to convince the judge. Yeah, so your question was my takeaways from Christ.
Yeah, Lavasa, sorry, from there you start. Yes.
Lavasa was also Lavasa was a relatively new campus back in the day, and there was this policy that in your fifth year, if you're a fifth year law student, you cannot participate in a lot of these non-academic things. But because as part of the student council, I got a chance to participate in non-academic things. We all went to Lavasa for the first time. We actually happened to have celebrated Father Benny's birthday over there, and by the lake, we had a campfire night and celebrated his birthday. It was a memorable experience, and I had a chance to participate in a few moots and ADR competitions. Again, at the time when I was on that side as a student, I had to figure out whether the tension of a moat is for me or not. The hype that is built around a moat is very tense. But now I have come on this side. Now I come judge competitions. Then now I understood, and later on I understood. But when you're on the other side, you're just going to be judged on the parameters of the competition. So whichever mood you're attending, I mean, there's no point, no reason to burn the midnight oil, no reason to, forget sleep and all of that. Just remember, it's just a competition. You're going to be marked as per the parameters of the competition. At this time, I had nobody to tell me this, and moods would give me a lot of stress, a lot of tension, and your teammates play a big role. Like just in real life, how your office colleagues play a big role in your growth. Your teammates in your moods are going to play such a role, and I unfortunately could not find the right teammates. And over the course of time, I thought maybe I'm just not cut out for moods. I thought this is just not for me. I'd given up altogether. But then eventually I said, why not try anything at all? Let me try different competitions, see where my skill set lies. And that's how I was driven to ADR, more particularly in mediation. I realized my skill set falls over there. So I had a chance to participate in the CPR International Mediation Competition. This was held in Brazil in 2018. So there were 32 teams, and the competition structure was such that 32 teams take part, and the second round is directly the semifinals. There's no quarterfinals as such. So you had to be very good, and we gave it our best. And luckily, we made it to the to the semifinals. And in the semifinals, we were put up against Harvard, and it was a tough competition. But we made it. We were able to beat the other two teams, and we reached third, second runner-up position in the competition, and I won some social media award and stuff like that. It was very memorable. Like the fact that we are able to go to Brazil and put our university's name on their websites, on their boards. It was a very interesting experience. That is something that I'll always cherish and remember. I also took part in a few moods and few ADR competitions within India. And that's when I realized this is everything is experience based. The more you participate in something, the more modes you take part in, you realize that's when you get better at it. So that was essentially my exposure to sort of propelling me into real life. Law and litigation was actually ADR competitions and a few moods.
That's wonderful, sir. That's great. So, sir, can you share some tips for law students about how do they like how should they participate for this area competition? Some tips in terms of increasing their efficiency for area competition as well as for mediation competitions and also. It could be even
So
for client counseling also. Yes, as collective.
yeah, so these tips are universal, irrespective of what competition it is. You have to keep in mind whichever competition, whether internal, whether you're doing it within Christ University or outside, judges are going to mark you on certain criteria. There will be ABC criteria such as your clarity of thought, how you present, your ability to answer questions, and other criteria where a portion of it would be, like maybe 20% of it would be your drafting skills, 20% would be your speaking skills. So you cannot forget that. You should always keep in mind if you are a good speaker, doesn't mean you just speak, because time management is also a skill set that you have to incorporate. So my advice would be keep that in mind. You are taking part in these competitions from the perspective of judges. We are just looking at objective things. It's not subjective. We are looking at, okay, can this person convince us in 6 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever it is? I mean, it's not. Of course, it's not like that in real life. In real life, we'll go on for 6 to 7 years. That's a different story. But you have to keep in mind only the criteria on what you're being marked is what you have to prepare. If your say your topic is on the new mediation law, the new mediation act, just make sure you read the act. Just the bare act. Just read the bare act. Read the main provisions. That when you as a participant tell us certain provisions, we know that you've read it, and that itself is going to help us understand what level of knowledge there is. Then when it comes to citations, you make a lot of citations and give us these compendiums, right? So when little things matter when you're on the other side as a judge. When you give a compendium and you say, look at this page, wait for us to get to the page. Don't just jump into it and just start because you have to finish certain things. And even your notes, don't have a script. Just keep bullet points. If you have a one-page script, you are going to read the one-page script. If you have a 10-page script, you're going to read the 10-page script. If you have just bullet points, you will think creatively, you will answer questions creatively. So when you in any competition are arguing, try and restrict your notes to bullet points so that there is some room for flexibility when we ask certain questions as the judges. Otherwise, if you feel like you have to say cover all the points in your notes, you're going to start fumbling because we may ask you something that is not at all a part of your notes. So just keep that in mind, and experience plays a big role. Your first time can be very daunting. You may have never participated in any competition, and you might not have any confidence. You might not even know how you're going to do. Or to your bad luck, you might be put into this in this courtroom where the judge is very strict in terms of marking. That happens in real life. We have judges also who are very easy to convince, and some judges who are impossible to convince. And that's just how it is. You can't remove human nature from any competition. So keep in mind that judges are only going to mark you on those few points. Focus only on that. Restrict your arguments to just the key points, and but just by doing these things, you're going to be well above average.
Thank you so much. I think students, it's going to be a great insight for them. So, sir, so you have completed even your LLM, no, sir? So, generally,
Yeah.
there's an assumption among the law students that LLM is basically done only for people who would like to explore more within the domain of academics, like teaching them.
Hmm.
Well, especially even about tier 2 and tier 3 colleges, they're not given much preference to LLM, but only tier 1 colleges or tier 2 tier 1 cities know how the importance of an LLM is for law students as well. That's the reason even colleges also push them to do it. So, sir, like, can you tell why law students are supposed to do LLM and who are not supposed to do LLMs?
See, my motivation, personally speaking, to pursue an LLM was driven by this desire to get a in-depth knowledge in ADR, because I see myself in the future focusing on ADR, and specializing would be a it's a very medical centric word. In the field of law, you can't actually specialize in one thing. You need to know a bit of everything. So that was my intention. Now, keep in mind, who should do LLM? Honestly, anybody who gets the opportunity, do it. It's a 1 year course. You are strengthening your knowledge on a particular field. Now, yes, if you are in a tier one city, or forget city, irrespective of which city you're in. Now, say you've joined a place of work. If you're in a litigation firm, yes, LLM may not make a big difference. But again, that is short term. In the short term, it may not make a big difference. If you're in a corporate firm, you're in a tier one firm, maybe your salary will be dependent on your qualifications. And in today's world, people are looking for someone with a master's degree. People are looking for someone with a specialized degree, and that is in any field, not just in law. Even in medicine, you do your MBBS and you do your MD, then you do your specialization, then you do your super specialization, and it just doesn't end. So there's anybody who gets a chance to do an LLM should do the LLM, because you're not just strengthening your subject knowledge, but you are also preparing for a situation if this opportunity comes to you. Now, say you call me as a guest faculty and I don't have an LLM. Qualified from actually coming and teaching. So it gives you a plan B. Having an LLM will keep your options open in the academic side. If you are truly inclined on just academic side of law, it's a necessity, no doubt about it. But if you intend on practicing, LLM is going to help you because it teaches you certain skill sets. It helps you manage your time, manage your attention, helps you understand how to prioritize certain things over the other. So I would say LLM is good if you are a litigation lawyer. There's no harm in it. You're not going to lose out on anything by doing a LLM lawyer. If you are a corporate lawyer, your qualifications can help you climb up the corporate ladder quickly. It can doing an LLM in a good place can even help you get to that tier one firm quickly. Some firms nowadays, while hiring, are looking specifically on master students. Now, for example, let's say Cyril Amarchand Mangaldas, and they're hiring, you can go to the website and see whenever they're hiring, they're looking for certain teams to have certain lawyers, like freshers in your disputes team, in your mergers team, etc. If you look at the necessary qualifications, all of them would say LLM is not mandatory, but is preferred. So having an LLM on your CV is already going to put you in that area where you're going to be noticed. And as I mentioned, there's no harm in this. You're not going to lose out on anything if you do your LLM. And if you go to litigation, you're going to continue litigation as it were, with an opportunity to go here and there with as guest faculty. If you're doing this as a person whose intention is to become a professor or faculty, then it is a necessity as per UGC rules. So yeah, I would just sum it down to anybody should do LLM if you get a chance to, and you're not losing out anything.
Yes, that's wonderful. So, can you explain now what is ADR in a very simple lines, a simple language about, for example, even for a layman, what is an ADR? What is mediation?
Mhm.
What is client counseling? And what is the scope of this, Lisa? And also along with it, if I'm a law student, from my first year, if I want to get updated about ADR field as well as within the domain of legal field, if I want to get updated, what are the tips would you like to suggest, sir?
So ADR stands for Alternative Dispute Resolution. Now, you have two ways to resolve a dispute. If I pick a fight with you guys, if three of you decide you want to file a case against me, that would be a formal way to resolve the dispute. You take me to court. We have to prove whether I was innocent or guilty. We have to go through lawyer fees. We have to go through time. And you can't put a monetary value on your time. And more importantly, on peace of mind. This may go on for years together. I have 4 to 5 options of appeal. Within Karnataka, I'll have a criminal appeal option, a revision option. I can go up to the Supreme Court. This is a formal way to resolve a dispute that is in court. Now, alternative dispute resolution is your little more informal way. One such example would be arbitration. Arbitration is essentially like a court, minus all the procedures, the strict compliance with the procedures, and minus the long timelines. Most arbitrations, 6 to 7 months, you're done. Your issue is resolved. If you're happy with the decision, then it's well and good. If you're unhappy, there's always a scope to take it to court. Your other option would be mediation. Now, mediation is nothing but what happens in your own homes. Say you and your mom are fighting. Your dad comes and try and diffuse the situation. He is nothing but a mediator. He is a party who is not part of that dispute, but is trying to make sure that you both figure it out. Mediation is more informal. Mediation is voluntary. It's not mandatory. Only if you want to mediate, you can take it forward for mediation. And if you resolve it in mediation, nothing like it. It's your own terms, your own conditions, your own timeline. You're not bound by the structures of a court. Your other option would be a conciliation, which is again very similar to mediation, but even quicker in terms of resolution of dispute. So ADR in India is evolving rapidly. Now, because in the recent past, its recognition is increasing across India. The burden on courts are increasing, and therefore people are looking at mediation and arbitration as a way of providing a quicker dispute resolution. I mean, there's still a greater need for awareness and acceptance because people don't really trust the system because of what they see in the news. The media trials and how the media portrays certain things can make people lose faith in the judiciary. But ADR is not at all that process. ADR is completely independent. It is more informal. This is something that everybody, if you have a dispute, wouldn't you rather dissolve it within yourselves than take it to court and fight it out for years? So essentially, arbitration, mediation, and other forms of ADR comes down to the parties wanting to resolve the dispute without going to court in a more informal sense, which is why we use the term alternative. Now, in India, you have the Mediation Act of 2023, which has come out, and that's a significant step forward in identifying and recognizing mediation, in giving structure to the area of mediation. Up until 2023, there was no rules on, you know, if a mediator is biased, what happens? If a mediator is showing his inclination towards one side, what happens? If he's unethical, what happens? There was nothing. There was no answer to all of this. That has been covered in the Mediation Act of 2023. It gives you a clear framework and guidelines and fairness in this process of mediation. Of course, it's not perfect. No law is perfect. With time, all these little loopholes will get fine tuned. But go for mediation, if you get a chance. If you are somebody who's watching this who's got a dispute going on, especially in something like a property dispute or a criminal dispute, not something like a murder or something smaller, like say a theft or something. Somebody's come to hit you, an assault, and you know the other person. If you have the option, go for mediation. Where you sit down together in one room, you talk it out, you try and resolve it, and you're done. In 1 or 2 months, you're done by paying 1/10 of the cost you would have paid. You don't have to deposit anything in court. There's no mandatory court fees you're paying. If you are able to resolve it with yourselves, I mean, imagine the system now. You have in Karnataka, you have 1 crore pending cases. There's like what 42 high court judges, and even if you do it mathematically, it's impossible for one judge to hear all these cases up until their retirement. Also, you need like 30 to 40 years to do this. So I would always press any client who comes, even in a family dispute, somebody comes and sits and says, "This is what is happening." I make sure the first thing I tell them is, "Have you tried mediation?" And with any client for that matter, have you tried to resolve it outside? Only if you must go to court, you go to court. So that is the scope of ADR. It helps you save a lot of headache, and you can't put a price on peace of mind. I have a client who, since 1998, that has been 26 years, since 26 years, he has been fighting with his tenant. It was a simple case of, this is my house. I am a landlord, you're a tenant, and I am asking you to leave the place. It's been 26 years. There have been 14 cases filed against each other, almost 20 cases now, including all the cases of this year. It's crazy, If you go into that spiral, there's no way you're coming out without losing your peace of mind and losing your hair. So always try to resolve your dispute outside of court.
That's wonderful, sir. Thank you so much. I think that's a very important process because even recently, Chief Justice Chandrachud also was telling the same. It's very much important that we need to give emphasis on ADR mechanism, so that many of the cases can be resolved very quickly. And I think that's a
Mhm.
we got from you, sir. So now I'd like to pass it on to Anaka, sir. So she'll be asking you questions about your career and your experience.
Sir, so how was your experience working with AS Ponnana? Everyone aspires to work at such law chambers right after law college. So how did you feel working there?
So I graduated in the month of May 2019. And to my luck, at that time, up until May 2019, Mr. A.S. Ponnana was the additional Advocate General. And he quit the government post and he started his own private practice. And to my luck, that is when I graduated and he required additional hands. And that's how my journey started. When I joined, it was just three of us, me, another alumni from Christ. He was my senior, 1 year senior, and my other senior colleague. So for almost 2 years, it was just the three of us who were handling all sorts of cases. I remember I sat down with Sir, who was also a designated senior counsel at the time. I went to his chambers. My first day, I sat down and he said, "What is your area of interest?" And I said, ADR and maybe environmental law and these areas of law. And he was laughing. He's like, "You graduated a week ago and you already have areas of interest without even trying out everything." So he was the one who actually told me, try everything before you decide whether you like something or not. Yes, there are certain subject matters you may like. And I did not expect that 5 years later, I'd be sitting and telling you that I like service law. Never in my life would I have thought that I'm going to be enjoying service law here. And that is some exposure. That is because of the exposure I got over there. And when I joined Sir's Chambers in 2019, the government had just changed. The Congress government had collapsed and the BJP coalition came into power. So there's a lot of dispute within the government that was happening, and our office were handling a lot of this, through which I was introduced to a lot of the IAS and IPS clientele over there. Yeah, the freedom that was given to me helped actually in a lot of ways. A lot of people who join an office, your first office, will actually play a big role on whether you like litigation or not. And not just litigation for that matter, anything. I am biased towards litigation because I am a litigation lawyer. Any office you join, if you don't have good colleagues, if you don't have a good boss, and if you don't have freedom, even if you don't have good colleagues. But if you have some freedom to do your work, to learn at your pace, and to to get an opportunity to fail, only then you'll grow. I had that opportunity over here. For years together, I was given certain clients and told to handle it all by myself. And when somebody says that, you realize your mistake is going to make or break your client's life. That exposure and understanding I had with Mr. A.S. Panana. So recently became an elected member of, he became an MLA in 2023 May from Virajpet constituency in Coorg. So now he is not actively in litigation, but he is still involved in law. So over there, I had access to a lot of these media friendly cases, I can say. Wouldn't say it's, uh, what is that, high profile, but it's just something that grabbed the media attention. At the time, we had filed cases on behalf of students to cancel the CET exams. Your CET is your common entrance test. So if you're somebody who's looking to get into engineering or medicine, you write the CET exam in Karnataka. These exams were scheduled in such a way that the second wave of COVID was on its peak. It was at its peak, and the government was not really taking that into consideration, and they were asking thousands of students to gather in closed spaces, sit together for hours together, and write exams. And it was very haphazardly organized. And so on that aspect, we were able to challenge it, and the court heard us up until 8 p.m. And then at 9:30 in the night, we got a judgment. I was a part of that case. I was a part of, similarly for KSLU, Karnataka State Law University. Also in 2021, we're conducting offline exams, right at the peak of the second wave of COVID. So even there, we were able to convince the court that it is more of a hazard than a necessity. And we, through this through the court, we were able to formulate a different way to determine whether a student should go to the next semester or not. And yeah, and there was this very strange case I had where a person was seeking for bail because the police had accused him of smuggling whale vomit in Karnataka, and this was something we'd never heard of here. And it was one of its kind case. It was the first case in Karnataka involving whale vomit. It was also known as the hamburgers. So we were able to convince the court that this is a fit case for bail. And yeah, these are some memorable experiences from my older office.
That's great, sir. So, what motivated to start your own practice? What exactly motivated you? Because you had such a great profile being in with working with AS Ponnana. So, what sparked your interest in starting your own practice?
Any lawyer wants to eventually build their own office. Now, I'm not going to sit here and try and say that being a second generation lawyer is not the reason why I was able to start early, because that is the fact. Because I had a father who is a lawyer at home, I was in a position where I could actually learn quickly. I had access to other lawyers, I had access to certain clients, I had access to petitions and how it should be drafted, even when I was in my first year in college. So, this head start, so to say, put me in a position where I realized I have gained sufficient exposure to the practical side of things. And I decided it's time to give it a shot because you have to take a risk at some point. Either you can be comfortable with while working in another firm for a long period of time, or take that risk. That risk includes not knowing where you're going to get your next client from, not knowing if you're going to even get a client for the entire month. But that is how you start. You have to build your own network, you have to build your clientele, and that is something that's going to take time. But if you have the right abilities, if you're good at what you're doing, people are going to come. So I decided, okay, you know what, it's time, let's take that risk, and took that leap of faith. And coincidentally, that was the same time period where I got married, and my wife is also a lawyer. So we decided, you know if you're going to take the risk, if you're going to be broke, let's be broke together. And that's how we started our own firm. And to our luck, like the very first case we ever handled happened to be a front page case, regarding the POXO Act. So this was a case where Just in brief, I'll tell you. It was a case where two 16-year-olds were in a relationship, and the relationship turned sour. And after a point of time, things got a little out of hand. One of the parties went to the police and said that the boy harassed me sexually. He made me do XYZ things. But there was absolutely no documentation to the same. There was no medical reports showing that she had even been assaulted. And in a POXO case, it's a little strange because, see, the intention of the legislature is to protect children, protect minors, boy or girl, irrespective of that, to protect them from predators, from your pedophiles. And therefore, in this peculiar law, you are guilty until you're proven innocent. In in all other legislations out there, you are innocent until you're proven guilty. But POXO is something entirely different. So this was the first of its kind case where we went to the High Court of Karnataka, bringing to the court's knowledge that the boy himself is a minor. So when a minor is being tried, he should be tried according to the Juvenile Justice Act, not directly as per the CRPC rules. So we went to the court, before which we actually sat down with the parties, and they came to the conclusion that this was all nothing but a big misunderstanding, and they don't want to take it further anymore. When they sat down and came to that conclusion, it didn't make sense, taking this case forward. But in other cases, now say that Pavan cheats Anaga, he takes money from Anaga and runs away. This is a kind of case where you both can sit together and decide, if you resolve it, if you get your money back, you can close the case, right? POXO cases are not like that. You can't just say, he harassed this minor girl, so it's okay. They have settled, they have resolved the issue. Because once you file a case, you are not uh, taking it forward. The state is. That is why when you file a case, it is, XYZ versus state of Karnataka and so on. So we were in a position where the parties, 16-year-old girl and 16-year-old boy, and their parents have come together and realized nothing has happened. It's just a misunderstanding. But they were stuck in this position where the law does not allow them to close the case, which meant that they had to go through years of trial. Then the court had to decide whether should be acquitted or convicted. So in this particular case, we went to the court saying that these are minors. Minors should be looked at in a different light. Minors are it's your CRPC can be used if you're 18 and above, but if you're not, take in mind this is that age group where your hormones are all over the place. You're discovering new emotions. You're getting in relationships for the first time. And some people may have been in an all boys school and all girls school. For them, this is something new altogether. But this is part of human nature. And we to support our case, we had hundreds of pages of documents from any other court, wherever any court in Karnataka or outside of Karnataka had said that minors should be treated little more leniently in these kind of situations. But we had nothing in Karnataka. Up until September 2021, there was not one single case in Karnataka which allowed for settlement of a POXO case. Settlement is just a legal way of saying that we're closing the case. So this judgment, the court agreed with us, and the court passed this judgment saying minors should be protected. Hormones and adolescence it plays a big role in this age group, and that is how, for the very first time, as an independent lawyer, for the first ever case that my wife and I got, we were able to set this new law into motion. And now people are using that law, because the only way for you to settle a case in the POXO legislation is if you are married and if you have children. This did not fall under that category. Without having anybody getting married to anybody, we were able to amicably close this case, and that was the start of my independent career in law. And since then, I've been handling all sorts of cases. Every year for medical students, we file hundreds of cases. Maybe I think for 300 or 400 students, we have filed cases with regard to examination issues. We handle service matters. And at this point, other than tax related issues, we handle all sorts of cases.
So your independent practice started off with such a boom, and that's really great. So would you like to talk about your involvement with the hijab case?
So in my old office with my fellow colleagues, we had this opportunity to represent this girl who had come to us saying that because she's wearing a hijab, because she had a cloth on her head, the principal of that particular school was not letting her inside the campus to write the exam. And that is all it was. We filed the case stating that this is discrimination. And there was a notification saying that this hijab is not allowed and so on. We challenged that notification saying that it's an essential religious practice and therefore they should be able to wear it. Now, to our luck, now I don't know whether it was a curse or whether it was a blessing. This picked up in the media. It's picked up, and we had hundreds of other people joining in. It became 9 p.m. News debates, national news. We had international media covering this. And after a point, you had so many other people filing similar cases. It all got clubbed. And I think 15 to 20 different cases were heard altogether on the question of law as to whether wearing of a hijab is essential in Muslim law or not. That's all it is. Of course, when you go on a media trial, they portray all sorts of things for TRP. But the actual issue was this. So we were trying to convince the court that wearing of a hijab is an essential religious practice. We cited the religious books, we cited different case laws to convince the court, and now eventually that court that got transferred to a three-judge bench. So to my luck, within 2 years of me joining work, I was already there arguing before a three-judge bench in the High Court of Karnataka along with my colleagues, and this was something. I mean, credit where credit is due. My colleagues, I was only like an assist. I played an assistant role in that, but my colleagues were the ones who actually got the case referred through somebody. They sat with the client, and I, of course, just helped with some case law and research work for them. But we were all on record, and we all argued this. Went to a three-judge bench, then it went on an appeal, then it went on. It's gone to the Supreme Court, and it's still pending in the Supreme Court. But yeah, it was just simple. It was whether hijab is an essential religious practice or non-essential. That is all the case was about.
So, sir, can you tell me what inspired you to start the Instagram handle called the Prateek Teachers Law? So, as we see, there are lots of people following in it, and so
Yes.
you many things to general people also. So, can you tell what inspired to start it?
Well, there are two aspects to that actually. One is when you're a full-time litigation lawyer, you have two jobs essentially. That is 9 to 5, you're in court, and then 5 p.m. onwards is when you're doing non-court work. So you barely have any time to have hobbies. So I realized like I need some hobby. I need something beyond the scope of court and office. And I realized that after interacting with my clients for the last 5 years of speaking to people, a lot of people were failing to understand the nuances of law. Because if you look at most of our laws, it's decades old. Very few laws are of the 21st centuries. Most of them are 19th and 20th century. So people would never understand how certain things worked. People would not understand why certain things went the way they did, why it followed a particular chain of command. So every time I would sit down with these people, I would explain to them, no, this is what it is, this is how it should be, and explain to them why certain things are the way they are. And that's when I realized this is a pretty common clarification that a lot of people required. So I figured, why not give it, why not try and teach people in very simple words without going too much into the law. Of course, I'll mention what section is relevant, but without using legal language, try and explaining to them and trying to educate the broader audience, not just lawyers, why certain things work the way they do, why something is illegal, how a criminal procedure or how the trial works. The inspiration was just to make legal knowledge more accessible and connect with aspiring lawyers, connect with just legal enthusiasts. And I realized visual media is, of course, that if you are somebody making videos and have a YouTube page, You need time for that. That unfortunately is something I do not have. So I thought, okay, how do I go about this? How do I teach people without actually, spending hours together on editing videos? And that's when I realized everybody likes charts, everybody likes graphs, everybody likes visual learning. I mean, the whole point of PPTs, even in law school, was to give visual learning. So my inspiration was essentially to just connect with the broader audience and educate them using simple words. And that is how I ended up starting the page Prateek Teachers Law.
So I think that page has a lot of followers, and I think you're amazing at spreading legal awareness. So
Thank you.
that's really inspiring. Sir, could you talk about your any one of your publications that had a significant impact that on either live law or bar and bench?
So, publication for general, the word publication in a general understanding would just be a, a print publication, something on print media. But in law, we sometimes refer to these as reported judgments or reportable judgments. So, one or two cases of mine regarding betting in IPL, there's something in Karnataka. It's called the Karnataka Premier League, and in KPL, a person was accused of having conspired with some bookies for betting. So we were able to convince the court that Section 420 does not cover betting. The law, the wording of Section 420 is not something that you can use in terms of betting because that's a different law altogether. So I would say that is something that a lot of people have subsequently cited on how Section 420 of the IPC cannot be construed to mean that uh, betting amounts to cheating, essentially.
That is really great because I think that established a new perspective on Section 420.
Correct. Yeah.
So your practice in litigation, it spans like criminal law, you practice education law, service law, as you already mentioned, civil law, and other areas as well. So, how do you manage to maintain such a diverse portfolio as a litigator?
When you start with zero knowledge and somebody comes to you with an incentive, now whether that incentive is monetary, whether it's in terms of learning, you have to take it up. If somebody comes to you with a case and you're going to either learn from it or you're going to earn from it, that is incentive to take it forward. And through this incentive of wanting to learn, I decided to take up challenges of case laws and subject matters I've never dealt with, such as filing of a case in the Central Administrative Tribunal. A lot of people don't even know there's a Central Administrative Tribunal in Bangalore. So I had to go to CAT. I had to sit there. I had to observe proceedings. I had to talk to the staff, get a first-hand exposure and learning. Otherwise, if you don't have a person sitting and teaching you, how else would you learn? You have to dip your feet in the water and go. That's how education cases also started. It all started with a group of medical students who came to me and said that I'm being targeted for no reason. I'm purposely being failed. That forced me into learning, uh, going into the scope of how practical exams are conducted, what is the procedure, what is the law, what are the circulars. I had to go to Rajiv Gandhi University to figure out their notifications. I had to apply for those papers, then study them. And that's when I got into this field of education law through that. And then eventually through word of mouth, people started referring me, and that built on that. So once you do something one or two times, the third time gets easy. And eventually, by the time you reach the 50th time, it will be like muscle memory. So that is how it all this. It's not a portfolio that I am voluntarily doing. It is just taking up whatever comes and learning from that. And that's how I'm able to maintain this kind of portfolio.
That's very inspiring, sir. As lawyers, we learn every day. So I think it's really inspiring on how you work as a litigator, taking up new cases every day. It's like you're motivating all of us to learn every day, new things.
Yeah, and the best part about litigation is no two cases are exactly the same.
Yes, sir.
You might file 1,000 bail cases, but no two bail cases would ever be the same because everything is slightly different, and that's something that I enjoy. That is why I like litigation, because there's always that knowledge that every day is going to be new. There's never a repetition of 2 days. That litigation is fun.
Agreed. Now I'll be passing it on to Kamal now.
So can you tell about the future of the legal field? So because there are many innovations like AI and all is coming into the field of law. So what do you think? What and all benefits will be getting? So how will the legal litigation field will be after the practicing of AI in this?
Now, if you remember in 1999 when the internet came out, people thought that would be the end of jobs. People thought now that Google is there, that their jobs have become redundant. But now, fast forward a few decades, you realize it is a platform that you use to build and be more efficient in your existing profession. So AI is similar that way. It is something that is going to boost the efficiency of the system in a lot of ways. Now, if you look at the practical difficulties, one of it is language. Now, with AI, you will be able to translate one judgment to hundreds of languages within a span of a few hours. This had to be something done manually. Of course, you still have to review all of this. It's not a perfect system. That is one way translation is going to benefit a lot from AI. Uh, Listing of cases, now it is all manually listed. There's no system as to why a case is listed at a particular time. It is just listed because X and Y Z number of cases have to be listed in certain court halls. But if you're able to integrate AI and the AI is able to understand what stage a certain case is in, you'll be able to streamline it better. You'll be able to get rid of the older cases better. It'll just help with streamlining of the system. And see, law is something that AI can only help. Law is not at all something that AI can create. And as lawyers, how we can benefit from this is, of course, in terms of learning. It is now going to be much easier for you to do any form of research with the improvements in AI with time. You'll see that, which year are you in, Pawan, if I may ask?
So I am in my fifth year. Pawan is in
Okay.
fifth year, and Anaga is in third year.
Okay, so Kamal and Pawan, both, you're in your fifth year. I'll ask you a simple question. Do you know how to file a case? You'll know how to draft a case, I'm sure. You know how to draft memos, am I right?
Yes.
But if I give you a file and say, please file this, do you know how to do that? Law school lacks the practical teachings where that the gap in communication can be bridged with AI. Now, if you use AI to kind of figure out, I am in this court, I'm in the High Court of Karnataka, how do I file a case? You might know, okay, there's a filing counter, you have to go to the counter. That'll give you a first step, where to go, who to talk to, and try and figure it out from there. So when you have absolutely no idea where to start, whether it's in terms of research, whether it's in terms of a practical aspect of law, AI is going to help you over there. And I see AI helping in making the legal system more efficient. And I foresee that number of pending cases is eventually going to reduce with your petty offenses. I'm sure it's only a matter of time that AI is going to come in like a mediator. You have in US certain AI-based mediations that happen. Now, if both sides are accepting the outcome, well and good. But that is something that there is scope for. AI cannot be a judge because the human biases are necessary. The empathy, the sympathy of the court, all of these are aspects that need to be there. No judge can be objective. Every judge is subjective. So you can't replace judges with AI, but you can help judges by getting mediations done through AI and helping resolving certain petty crimes, petty disputes. Maybe in terms of investigation, it's going to help. It'll make things easier for the prosecution side also. The future of AI, I see the future of law is going to be eventually integrated with AI. And even with ADR, I foresee that there's going to be a lot of growth. We have the new Mediation Act, as I mentioned earlier. This ADR is something that I foresee growing. You have foreign lawyers now coming into India. You have billion-dollar companies that are now made in India. Disputes are inevitable. Disputes and disease are inevitable, which is why we always have lawyers and doctors. So I foresee that ADR is going to be the next big thing in litigation and law in general. And with the growth of AI, I foresee both of them being clubbed together as well.
The words were really helpful. So because even I'm going to practice as a litigation lawyer, it will actually be helping for me a lot. So what's the general advice to the students, law students? So what can they do from their first year to fifth year? So what and all doing from the first year it be helping for the people to come out as a good lawyer?
Now, there are so many factors here. To give general advice is one thing, but you need to understand you have people, first year students, who have never been out of their hometown. Some people, maybe a tier one, tier two, or a tier three city, but when you go to a new place altogether, it makes so much of a difference. You're already overwhelmed with everything. For you to get out of that itself, I would just give, I'm not going to say year wise advice, I'll give advice to first year and the rest. So, two first years, it would just be networking, make friends. The friends you make in college might just be your friends for life. They are going to be your colleagues in the future. You might bump into them in court. So, getting a lot of people come from new cities, a lot of people don't know the language, a lot of people might not even be good with English. So, these are certain aspects that you will have to learn, especially if you're new to law. You will need to polish your English, you will need to learn to be extroverted. You might not naturally be that way, but you have to kind of put on that mask and tell yourself, I'm going to network, I'm going to make friends. And my advice, barring this, would just be to focus on building a strong academic foundation. Because when you go looking for a job, and if you're speaking to somebody and you're not able to show that you have academic knowledge, nobody would want to hire you. If you're able to, convince somebody about certain laws, that's a different story altogether. So build academic knowledge and simultaneously get practical exposure through internships. I know you have to do 5 mandatory internships, but you have 10 breaks. Do 10 internships. Because even in our firm, if we find that an intern is well equipped and has all the skills that we are looking for, even in their fourth year, we tell them, you know what, come work with us. Until you graduate, you can work with us full time. That's a scope that you have in the field of law. That if you're able to get to the right internships and show your worth over there, it's very easy to start getting jobs. And then your moot courts and your ADRs, take part. It doesn't matter if you get the first rank or the last rank. The fact that you are participating in this is going to make you better off than people who are not going to participate. One day you're going to be thrown in a situation where your boss is going to tell you, go argue this case. I can't. I have some other case to attend. To get that kind of exposure and to understand how to deal with that, you need to go through that process of being roasted in mood. Judges are going to ask you 100 questions. They're going to test you, but that's what it is. Like the more you are tested, the stronger you're going to come out of it. And build relationships. Studies is not the end of your world. It should just be a part of it. Build relationships, meet people, just keep learning. This only happens if you are able to have good practical exposure through internships, and if you get a chance to go out for your moots, your ADRs, out of town, interact with other students from other colleges. This is what's going to help you as a lawyer. Just academics will not help you. Just one knowing, even though you might be the expert in one subject matter, but it's not going to help you unless you have the skills of being extroverted, unless you can network and learn learn these human side of things, not just the academic side. Learn things like how to speak better, how to convince people. Read those books. That's going to help you a lot as a lawyer. And yeah, that would be my advice to students in your first year. Take it easy. Second year onwards, just try everything. No harm in failing in everything.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much. So here ends our podcast. Thank you so much for being part of our Vidhisamvad podcast. We got a lot of insights. Trust me, I was just writing down the notes. It was just literally covering all the pages. But thank you so much, Prateek. Said like all the things you shared, it just came out from your heart. We were able to analyze in that particular angle, and it has been really a rich experience for us. Because normally, being in law school, we just get to know about theoretical knowledge a lot. But today, you just explained us how the practically things functions. Sharing out your experience was really of great insights for us, and we assure you that like all the law students is watching this video, plus including us, will surely be a great law students, and we'll surely be remembering you. And thank you so much, sir. On behalf of the entire team, I want to thank you once again. You're the one of the best advocates. Felt like elder brother advising us, being a juniors over here, but being alumni of our university, plus seeing the footstep of being a senior from your side was a great insights for you. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pawan, Kamal, and Anaga. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So much,
Thank
sir.
you.